My family and fiancé turned their backs on me after my sister framed me, accusing me of cheating on my husband, something I never did. She twisted everything so well that everyone believed her lies. In a moment, my entire life fell apart. I lost the trust of those closest to me. My marriage ended, and I was left completely alone. Years later, my ex-husband showed up at my doorstep, his eyes full of regret. I woke up on an unfamiliar couch with a dry throat and a pounding headache. My body ached like I'd spent the night sleeping on concrete. My phone was lying dead on a glass coffee table. Next to it were some pills and a glass of water. I was still in my dress and heels, but had no clue where I was, how I got there, or what happened last night. A guy I barely recognized stepped out of the kitchen and said I passed out in the cab, and since he didn't know where to take me, he brought me to his place. I nodded. I didn't feel anything, just this quiet, internal shake. An hour earlier, I was at a club with my sister Haley. She had unexpectedly invited me out, something she'd never done before. We were never close. I'm the youngest of three sisters, quiet, obedient. Haley was always the difficult one. She earned people's trust fast, but not mine. Or maybe I was just jealous. My name is Ellison. I'm 23. At the time, I was engaged to Matt, my childhood friend and the love of my life. His parents had dinner at our place more often than at their own. He didn't have siblings, so he became part of our family, and I became part of his. Everything felt solid, time-tested, or so I thought. Matt and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for 6 months. He wasn't just my dream guy. He was the one who knew me before I ever learned how to lie. He supported me when I didn't believe in myself. Even when my mom joked about me gaining weight and said he might leave, he told her he loved me not for my looks, but for the way I laughed and thought. I believed every word. So when Haley said she wanted a sister's night out, I agreed. I thought maybe we were finally maturing, connecting. We had a couple drinks, then a few more. At the club, I started feeling off. The music pounded in my head. Everything slowed down. I remember her flirting with some guy, then coming back angry, saying he turned her down because he was interested in me. And then, nothing. And now I'm not at home. And I'm not with Matt. I'm in a stranger's place, with a broken night, and a fear that hasn't even started yet, but is already standing at the door. I got home around 9 in the morning. My heart was pounding as the taxi turned onto our street. I thought maybe Matt had been worried, that he'd ask where I'd been. I'd explain everything, and things would go back to normal, but they were all already in the living room. My parents, Haley, Matt, even his mom. And as soon as I opened my mouth, he said, "How could you?" It hit me like a punch. I started explaining that my phone died, that I wasn't feeling well, that I just fell asleep. But he didn't listen. He shouted, said I betrayed him. Haley stood beside him with fake concern and asked how I could do this to someone who'd always been there for me. She said I'd been flirting all night and then left with her friend. I shook my head and begged them to listen, but no one did. Then Haley pulled out her phone and showed a picture. Me, clearly drunk, walking out of the club, that guy's hand on my back. The photo looked awful. I didn't even remember it happening. Matt turned pale with rage. His mom started crying. My mom grabbed my wrist and hissed, "You're a disgrace. Get out of this house." I froze. My dad stood silently in the corner. I asked Haley to call the guy so he could confirm nothing happened. She agreed, and of course he backed her version. Said I asked him to take me home and that we'd been together all night. I went numb. It was all planned. But no one cared. Matt looked at me like I was a stranger. Then he just turned and walked out. After everyone left, my mom slapped me, tossed my bag on the floor, and told me to get out. I walked to my friend's place on foot, shaken, humiliated, like I'd been ripped inside out. In a single day, everything I had, love, home, family, was gone. I didn't even understand how it all fell apart so fast. But one thing was clear. I was completely alone, and there was no way back. The first few days felt like a fog. I stayed at a friend's place, slept on a folding cot in her tiny living room, and kept checking my phone, hoping to see a message from Matt. Nothing came. Not a single word. I texted him. A lot. At first I explained. Then I begged. Then I just sent dots. No response. A few days later, I got a message from my mom. Cold as ice. She called me a disgrace, a liar, a shadow of a person. Told me not to even think about coming back. My things were gone. Thrown out. I sat there holding my phone, feeling like I was falling through the floor. It wasn't anger. It was emptiness. Like I no longer existed. My friend wanted to help, but she didn't have money or space to keep me long. I rotated between couches. One friend, then another. Sometimes I slept in a car that belonged to my friend's brother when no one else could take me in. I watched couples at cafes holding hands, and I felt nothing. No pain, no jealousy, no hope. My life had just stopped. The worst moment came on Christmas Eve. I made a decision. I got dressed up, bought a pie, went to my parents' house, knocked on the door. No one answered. At first, I waited. Then I called. No reply. That's when my friend texted me, "Did you see this?" and sent a screenshot, a photo, posted on Facebook. My whole family, mom, dad, Haley, grandma, grandpa, all sitting around a big decorated table, lights glowing, dinner served at a house near the water. In another state, and next to them, in the same photo, sat Matt. He was holding up a toast, smiling. It hit me like a punch to the chest. I stared at the screen while everything inside me crumbled. I didn't cry right away. The tears came at night. Quiet ones. I didn't want to wake anyone. I don't know how long it lasted. Maybe an hour. Maybe forever. But when I was finally emptied out, I realized there was nothing to go back to. They had erased me. All that was left was me. And if I didn't save myself, no one would. A few days after Christmas, I gave the engagement ring to my friend. I said, "Sell it if you want. I don't need it anymore." It wasn't a gesture of despair. It was a period. She knew a guy, a small restaurant owner 2 hours out of the city. He needed someone urgently and offered housing above the place. Bare minimum amenities, but a roof. I said yes. I didn't care. When I arrived, they handed me keys to a tiny room with a narrow bed, a shower, and a small window. A uniform, a schedule, and a look that said, "We'll see how you do." I handled it. Worked every day, 10 to 12 hours straight. My arms ached from carrying trays, my legs shook at night, but I never complained. To anyone. The staff was polite but distant. The owner, stern but fair. I saved money, slowly. After 6 months, I rented a slightly bigger room. After a year, a small apartment with a kitchen and a balcony. I didn't take vacations, didn't celebrate birthdays. I just lived, worked, kept moving. I didn't return to social media, didn't Google their names. Sometimes my friend would mention something, casually, like in passing, but I shut it out. It felt like if I even glanced back, it would all pull me under again. Almost 2 years went by. I still worked at the same restaurant, but now as assistant manager. I had responsibilities, a schedule, control over things. For the first time, I didn't rely on anyone's approval, and right at the moment I almost believed the past had let go, someone knocked on my apartment door. I opened it. Matt was standing there. He hadn't changed. Or maybe that was the problem. Everything I'd buried so carefully inside rose to the surface at once, and suddenly it was hard to breathe. I didn't let him in. I just stood there, gripping the door handle like it could somehow protect me from the memories. He started talking, quietly, almost nervously. Said that Haley had confessed, that she made the whole thing up, that even the guy later admitted he lied. But by then it was too late. I looked at his face and felt nothing. Not even anger, just cold. He asked if we could talk, but I said no. Told him I needed time to think. A few days later, it wasn't Matt who came back. It was my father. The second I opened the door, I smelled his cologne. Childhood, school mornings, safety. He brought groceries, insisted on tidying up the kitchen like nothing had happened. When we finally sat down, I broke. I couldn't hold it in anymore. He tried to hug me. I pushed him away. Asked him why he was here. He said he and my mom were getting divorced. That he begged her to reach out to me after I left, but she refused. Said if I decided to walk away after what I'd done, then I could figure it out on my own. I asked how long it took them to even realize I was gone. He said not until after New Year's. They came back from their trip and only then found out from my friend that I'd disappeared. I asked why he didn't call, why he didn't defend me, why he didn't verify a single thing. He cried. Said if he could undo anything in life, it would be this. So I reminded him how they fought for Haley when she was spiraling. Sent her on trips, gave her chance after chance. And me? They erased me. He lowered his eyes. Said he didn't know Mom had kicked me out. Thought it was just for a few days. Thought things would settle. I told him her message wasn't a few days. It was a bullet. He looked shocked. Told me all my things were stored in the attic, that he could bring them. I said no. I didn't want the things or the memories. I wanted truth. He fell silent, then quietly said he no longer speaks to Haley, and that he'll do whatever it takes to at least get me back. I didn't know if I was ready to forgive, but I agreed to one meeting. Just him. No Mom, no Haley, no Matt. He arrived Saturday morning, just like I asked. We drove out of the city, just quiet on the highway. He played old music I remembered from childhood, the kind we listened to on fishing trips. It felt like déjà vu. Like the past briefly let me in, but only to watch, not to participate. We stopped by a lake where we used to rent a cabin. He brought a thermos of tea and a couple of sandwiches. I sat on the edge of the dock and realized it was the first time in 2 years I felt calm. Not happy, just calm. He sat beside me and gently asked what happened after. I told him about sleeping on friends' couches, about work, about nearly being homeless, about standing at the front door on Christmas with a pie, like a stranger. He listened. No interruptions, no justifications, just listened. Then he said he wanted to invite me to a family therapist. Just the two of us, not as father and daughter, but as two people trying to start again. I didn't know how to respond. I was still angry. Not even at him. At myself. For trusting. For believing. For not seeing how easily I was replaced. I asked him why he didn't fight for me back then. He went quiet. Then said, I stayed with her all my life because I thought I had to. Now, I don't want to live in a house where you were erased. We drove back to the city that evening. In the car, he asked if we could take a trip together, just like old times. I said okay, but added, no pressure. No promises. He nodded. A few days later, for the first time in 2 years, I went somewhere that wasn't work. A small town by the coast. With my father. No agenda. Just to breathe. And we did breathe. We laughed. I even forgot what it was like to not hold everything in. And for the first time in a long time, I wanted to live. Not just survive. A few weeks after our trip, my dad called again. He said Matt wanted to see me. That he had talked him out of coming along the first time, knowing it would be easier for me to make a decision if I heard them separately. I didn't know how to feel. I'd gotten used to the silence over these 2 years. But at least his name didn't make me shake anymore. And that meant something. Then Dad mentioned that Matt had attacked that guy, Haley's friend. The one who lied. The guy filed a report. Matt got arrested, but was released a few days later. I didn't say anything. It all felt too late. The next day, Dad showed up with a small note. On the envelope was Haley's husband's number. He said, you decide what to do with it, but he deserves to know the truth. I stared at the number for a long time. Then I called. My hands were shaking. I was scared I'd hear her voice in the background, but it was him. And I blurted everything out at once. I regretted that. I should have prepared. He was stunned. I explained the whole night, the lie, the photo, the alcohol, the setup. I even told him about her addiction, how she always twisted things. I expected him to yell, defend her, get angry, but he just exhaled hard. Said he'd suspected something for a while, that Haley had created so many issues with his sister, twisted everything until she didn't even come to their wedding. He sounded defeated. I told him I was sorry, but maybe he needed to reconnect with his sister, because the problem wasn't her, it was Haley. He thanked me and hung up. I sat by the window after. I didn't feel victorious, just tired. But in that tiredness, there was a kind of quiet justice. She had destroyed my life. And now her own was unraveling. Not because of me, but because of the truth. I didn't know if he'd leave her, but I knew one thing. For the first time, the truth was on my side. I didn't respond to my mother's messages, not a single one. They came rarely, as if she didn't even know what to say. Sometimes it was just, I'm sorry. Other times, long blocks of text about pain, regret, about how she felt torn between two daughters. But I didn't believe words anymore. I knew too well how they could lie. My father no longer lived with her. He got his own apartment and started therapy. We met from time to time. Sometimes in silence, with coffee. Sometimes in conversation, where he mostly listened. He offered help, with rent, work, money, but I declined. I didn't want anyone to think I owed them anything again. My job at the restaurant became something personal. Not a career, but an anchor. My boss once gave me a roof over my head without questions. I wasn't planning to leave until I gave back everything I could. Sometimes I think I should have done it differently. Spoken up sooner, screamed louder. But maybe everyone has their own way of surviving. It took me 2 years to look people in the eye again. Matt texted. Once. Said he still loved me. That he never stopped. I didn't reply. Maybe one day I will. But not now. I live alone in a clean, bright apartment without boxes from the past. I have mornings I enjoy, a mirror I can look into, and a voice that finally sounds like mine again. I'm not sure if I've forgiven all of them. Not sure if I even need to. I'm not obligated to be the one who forgives everyone, who chose herself, and that is enough. That's where this story ends, and a new one begins.